Hey YouTube, Dan Otto here, coming at you with Halloween Cup. Starts today in the Great League. We're going to go over top 20 rankings and then 4 teams that you can try. And I'm going to use one to deal with number 1 on this list. So Toxapex. If you haven't played against this thing yet, it is a pain in the butt. So it's poison. So actually, sorry, before I get into how strong this Pokemon is, Halloween Cup is poison, bug, ghost, dark, and fairy. So those are only 5 typings you can use. As you can see, a lot of poisons up here on the list. We'll go over why that is in 1 second. The main reason is there's no pure ground on this. So ground is sort of one of the only, not only weaknesses, but one of the main weaknesses of poison. And then a lot of these have secondary typings that help with the other Pokemon in this meta. So like I said, this Pokemon is so tanky. I had a Galarian Stunfisk on it, super effective Earthquake, did not one shot, and I was just like, oh man, this thing is a beast. So I don't have one built, but if you have one, definitely recommend using it. Very, very tanky. Brine is not a terrible, it still takes 3 brines to take out its Stunfisk, so it doesn't hit super hard, but it's not terrible. And then Sludge Wave obviously is a strong move. So I'm just gonna break down into the poisons. So all these poisons are secondary typing: Golbat with flying, double Nidoqueen with ground, Weezing, Galarian with fairy, and then you have Skuntank with dark, Grimer with dark, Skuntank again, right? So poison's just gonna be on here a ton because there's no not a ton of ground, just to Earthquake. There's not a ton of, if any, Wormadam Trash. I know I remember, and Fortress is I don't know if Wormadam Trash for sure at number 10 is. There's not a lot of steel in here, so all of your poisons won't be resisted. So in most situations, you're throwing for at least neutral, right? There are some, and that's why Frostlass is number 5, because Frostlass as a ghost is one of the best answers to all these poisons. So you're going to see a lot of Frostlass just because Powder Snow Avalanche is just a beast. And it doesn't wall all these poisons, because a lot of these poisons, like I said, have secondary typings. Skuntank is dark. And Grimer is half dark, so they will have dark type moves for the Frostlass. So you could see some combination of 2 to 3 poisons on a team. So just look out for that. That's why I'm kind of building against it on my first team. Couple darks on here: Mandibuzz, Quillfish, and Overquill. So Mandibuzz running Air Slash. Again, it's just a tanky Pokemon. Because there's so many poison dark typings in this, and because dark is also one of the typings, it just makes sense to go Air Slash just for more neutral coverage. And again, there's not a lot of steel, so you don't need to worry about a ton of resistances. And then I've used Quillfish. So I've not used Overquill, but Quillfish is the first evolution of it. And Quillfish is extremely, extremely glassy. So I don't even know how glassy Overquill is, but Quillfish hits pretty hard, so I can imagine Overquill hits even harder. So I think those are you probably want shields down or shield advantage for those two. And then you get into some bug. So Beedrill, Wormadam Trash, and Fortress. Bug obviously does. So there's the fairy on this list, right? Sorry, not fairy. There's the dark on this list, right? So fairy does. Wow. Sorry, I'm looking at Weezing. So bug does good against fairy, and I'm looking at the Azumarill because Azumarill is number 8. So bug does good against dark. Sorry, bug does good against dark. Poison does good against fairy, right? So having that double combo there is for Beedrill is a beast. Wormadam Trash, if you're going to have a ton of poisons, you got to have something to resist poison, and Wormadam Trash is your answer for that. So I expect to see a few of those. Marowak is an interesting one because there's so many darks in here, which makes it tricky to use. I don't know if I love it. Fire Spin will be nice for the bugs and Frostlass, and the Bone Club is such a bad move though, but Bone Club can chip poison pretty well, right? So definitely will have some play. Just watch out for all the darks. And then we go down Runerigus. I don't have one built yet because I am not doing many raids, but I think Runerigus is going to be a really sneaky pick because as long as you don't align it with the dark, the Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball will do pretty well. And then Sand Tomb for all these to lower the defense if you bait to move too. So I think it's going to have a lot of play. And then Mawa is the other steal right there. With Fairy, there's a running Fairy Wind fast move just to get to a couple of nukes. So teams, team number 1. I need to deal with Togepex. So I started with Galvantula Frostlass. Galvantula is electric, obviously, and it's water. It's half water. And then Frostlass, because you're resisting all the poisons, right? And you have the Shadow Ball. And it has these, seem to have a lot of like similar coverages, right? You see like the Golbat, you get the Mandibuzz, Azumarill, Quillfish. So you have seen a lot of same coverage, and then you have some weaknesses. Although looking at the Frostlass matchup, that's not true. Galarian Weezing. So if you never use Galarian Weezing, I've used it a couple times in a factions. It is very, 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 very bait dependent. It knows Sludge, which is like maybe like a 40 energy move. And then it knows like Play Rough, which is like a 45-50, and then it knows Overheat. So Overheat is going to just blast a lot of stuff. But a lot of times it relies on that first sort of bait of Sludge, and it's not a tanky Pokemon. So it's one of those Pokemon, if you're going to use, like as you can see with Fortress, or I'm going to trash like Frostlass, it's counting on that boom of an Overheat, which this is why it kind of works with this team, because Galvantula and Frostlass are really, really good at getting shields, right? Avalanche, Discharge, Shadow Ball, like really hard-hitting moves. So I would expect you to grab a lot of shields on the front end and then try and sweep on the back end with Galarian Weezing to try and nuke some stuff. But what is your so you have to run Overheat. The problem is like there's so many poisons, like I said, in this. What is going to be your second move? You can either go, because your Sludge, I think you need to run Sludge as the bait move. Like Play Rough is still resisted by all these poisons, right? So it's not super, super useful. Like you have a lot of hard losses here. Togepi's, Nidoqueen, Renorigus, Tentacruel, right? Anything that's like a lot of poisons, you're going to have a lot of trouble with. So just keep that in mind if you're going to run this Pokemon. So the second team is... I started with like Nidoqueen just because I had it, right? I use the Shadow, but you don't have to use Shadow. Just to see like, okay, I don't have Togepi, let's use like one of the best other poisons and see what I can do here. And you get what you expect, right? You're going to do well against a lot of things, and then you're going to do poorly against the Worm Trash, which knows Psychic, and you're going to do poorly against the Renorigus, which is a ground, which is why I think Renorigus is going to be everywhere, right? Because there's going to be a lot of just resistance to poison there. But it picks up a lot of matchups, so now you need something to cover that Renorigus and some of your losses in your Worm Trash and Fortress. And one of the strongest Pokemon, beefy Pokemon there are that I have is Mandibuzz. So good sort of coverage all the way down the board. And then I needed sort of like another answer to Togepi. I just expect them to be everywhere. They're even starting to show up a lot in Open Great League. And for a limited meta, I expect it to show up way more. So I'm going to always try to have at least 2 counters on my team to Togepi. And I recommend that you do as well. And if you see in your range it's not coming as much, then you can like kind of switch the team up. But for me, I'm probably just going to always have 2 counters for it on my team. And Worm Trash is like a nice answer to a couple of the other things. And just getting that Steel to resist the poison is nice. Again, another one of those Pokemon that I do not have built up. I could build one up. I just don't have like good IVs. Do I want to invest in it? I could, but we'll see. This third team I'm calling more safe swap team. And like there's a couple hard losses for Escav here. But for the most part, if you go check out my how to use pvpoke, what these circles and X's mean, basically if it's a colored in circle, you are going to lose hard. So you have a couple of hard losses on Escav, but either the small circle means you're only going to lose by a little bit, and small X means you're going to win by a little bit, and then big X means you're going to win by a lot. So for the most part, this team is all small wins and small losses, and I kind of like that because it gives you more flexibility in this meta. And Umbreon, again, Umbreon just you can use it as a safe swap. You can leave Golbat, you can leave Escav. Escav is a closer too. It is fun. So Umbreon is a pretty decent safe swap in this meta, just because there's not going to be like a ton of fighting, and there's a few fairies, but like when there's so many poisons, I don't think that the fairies are going to be that relevant. Like Azumarill's on the board, and Galarian Weezing because it has this sort of nuke move, but there's not a ton of other A9tails, I guess, is down there, and I think A9tails is on my next team. Although A9tails is Powder Snow, just FYI, that's the recommended moveset. It's just there's so much poison in this meta. I don't think you're going to see a ton of fairies. And if that's the case, that you know there's going to be so many poisons in this meta, you got that Umbreon Psychic community day. Psychic may not be a bad option, right? You got your Nidoqueen, you got your Golbat, you got all the other poisons. Like some of these are still, so here's a trade-off. Here's the trade-off actually before you do that. There's a trade-off between you can now sort of hit the Golbat, the Nidoqueen, and the pure poisons, Togepi's, way harder with Psychic. So that is an option. The problem is those dark poisons in Skunk Tank, Drapions not on this. Those dark poisons are, and Sableye, right, as a dark ghost. Those Pokemon, I guess you can throw neutral for foul play there, so don't worry about that one as much. But the other ones, a Psychic would be resisted and foul play would be resisted. So there is a trade-off between running Psychic and Last Resort. So just make up that decision based on your team comp. Ascav has always been my secret weapon in sort of Great League and Ultra League. It's so... A counter user that doesn't take super effective from Charm is always great in my books. And Drill Run. Drill Run for all the poisons on this list is amazing. So definitely use that. It's going to be tough against Flyers. It's going to be tough against, I guess, the Fairy there and Runerigus as the ground, right? So that's something you need to cover. And then Golbat is kind of another safe swap where it's like there is ice, like Frostlass and a Ninetales. Not a ton of it, right? So you don't need, and not a ton of electric, right? I mentioned Galvantula as the bug, but there's not a ton of pure, like other electric. So Golbat is not a bad option that is resisting, because it's half poison, resisting all the poisons, but having the flying type move to do that. The problem is, Wing Attack is fine as a fast move, but Poison Fang and Shadow Ball will both be resisted by dark type Pokemon. No, will be resisted by dark poison type Pokemon, right? All those I mentioned again. So in that case, with this team, I'm probably running Last Resort on Umbreon in this scenario. And the last team here is Beedrill, A Ninetales, and Runerigus. So I don't have, like I said, I don't have Runerigus built, but I know how strong it's going to be in this meta. Again, as a ground type Pokemon, to be able to resist all the poison with all the poison Pokemon and just throw the either Sand Tomb, or you can throw the Shadow Ball against a lot of these things. So that's good. You're going to have charms against the dark type Pokemon, right? Anything with a secondary dark typing like Drapion, I just went Umbreon, anything with dark, right? Because then you really can only throw the Sand Tomb, and then Shadow Claws are resisted, and then Shadow Ball is going to be resisted. So you're going to need to build something to deal with that. So Beedrill, right? I said being able to throw Bug super effective against the darks. Great answer there. Beedrill being also able to throw super effective against drill runs against the poisons is a great combo there. And then a third, I'm not sold on Ninetales. Like, you're a bit weak to Runerigus on this team, so Ninetales, Powder Snow, Weather Ball spam is not a terrible answer. You may even want to run, I'm wondering what the default move on this one was. Again, you may want to run Psyshock on this instead of Moonblast, right? Because Psyshock will hit, you can just go straight Weather Ball on most of these poisons and darks, and then you can go on the darks and other Pokemon, like I'm looking at like Mandibuzz. Obviously Mandibuzz instead, you need Play Rough. But just having a Psychic type move could be beneficial. So I don't know, just play around with it. Those are the teams I'm interested. Again, this is one where it has the potential to be open, right? It has the potential to, anyways, let's just, as I normally do. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. If you want to just jump out now, more sort of talk, rambling thoughts at the ending here for the rest of you. It has the potential to be more wide open. There's like I said, I think it's going to be dominated by poisons, but I think there are enough secondary Pokemon. And I won't bring it up on my screen here, but I'm just going to go to pvpoke just to check out sort of like 21 through 40 rankings here. So you get like Eradicate, Pawniard, Scizor, Crustle, Umbreon, Sableye, and then you're going to kind of get into like some more Salazzle, Crobat, and then you're going to kind of getting into more Amok. Yeah, if you're sort of weak. Charger Bug, if you just built one up like I did. Zweilous as another dark, right? So that's interesting. Zweilous as a... So I think there is the potential for a lot of different combinations of teams. Am I worried we're just going to see a Togepex, Nidoqueen, cover your ground weakness with, I don't know, Frostlass teams? Maybe, or yeah, maybe. Like, I'm the problem with these limited metas is the teams start to narrow quickly, and if you're not, and it can get boring really fast. But Open Great League is also on, right? So that one thing I did not mention is if you get bored of this cup, play Open Great League. I'm going to try this cup out a few times. Like I said, in my first team, at least 2 counters to Togepex. I may go 3, quite honestly. And we'll see how that goes. Anyways, that is it. Thanks for watching. Good luck. I will showcase my first team tomorrow. And I will see you guys in the next one.